Inspiring connection. Restore. Renew. Reconnect. Live. Laugh. In love. Connections. Dream. Getaway experiences. Brave Heart Workshops. Unique Getaways live with Jill Reynolds.
The Connection Show, Restore, Renew, and Reconnect in Community, sponsored by Brave Heart Workshops live with Jill Reynolds. And joining me today is Stephanie McPhail from the East Coast. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hi, I'm so glad we were able to make this happen.
Yes, I am so glad as well. Thank you so much. Well, I wanted to let the audience know just a little bit about who Stephanie is and what she does. She's a certified dream coach and transformational life coach, author, Reiki practitioner who specializes in thriving after codependency and narcissistic abuse. Stephanie is an expert in helping brilliant women date up and the author of the #1 new release in codependency titled Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt. Recognize and overcome toxic relationships so you can live your best life now. She became committed to helping others after overcoming her own personal crisis. She is normally someone that can deal with life stress pretty well, but at 35 years old and recently divorced, she suddenly found herself faced with legal issues, the death of her grandmother, a blood clot, and a difficult breakup, all within a 3-month span. After feeling depressed and helpless, having a tough time getting through the day, losing 25 pounds, and barely able to function in her daily activities, she started to think about what lessons she could learn from the experience. Her search for answers led her to explore natural and complementary techniques that honored her inner wisdom and ability to heal, and her life was transformed as a result. So amazing, and congratulations on your book and the sales and how you're helping others around the world to heal. And so if you could, take us on that journey, if you wouldn't mind, back to those days and just exactly how that transformational took place in your life.
Sure. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in and welcoming me to this beautiful show, Jill. It's been an interesting journey. If you would have told me 10 years ago that I would be helping women overcome toxic relationships, I probably would have laughed. Not for ill will, but because I was so screwed up when it came to relationships, I would have never thought that I would be the one helping others. And so, my journey kind of goes back to an upbringing of my parents fighting a lot and not really ever experiencing healthy relationships. So when I got into the age of dating, I never knew what that even looked like. So I didn't have anything to base it on. When I started dating my first long-term boyfriend, we got serious pretty quickly. I was excited to have someone show interest in me. And, we started living together, and things started to go wrong after we moved in together. But because we were living together, I kind of felt that commitment to staying with him. And things just kind of progressed, and we ended up breaking up. We were together 7.5 years. We broke up after the cops were called. He pulled me out of bed, ripped my pajamas. I mean, it'd been bad for a while, but that was kind of the icing on the cake. And when that relationship ended, I thought, well, I'm smart. I've got all these degrees. I'm smart. I'm independent, all these things. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to just not ever date anyone like that ever again. So I didn't really do enough work. I just continued right on dating and met my first husband. And my first husband was the things that my ex-boyfriend wasn't. And he was really, honestly, a lot of the things, the worst of all of the relationships I had ever experienced in my life. Know it then. So he pushed me into getting married really before I was ready. He pushed me into moving in together, even though I said, hey, I didn't have the best of luck the first time around. I'm not really sure I want to jump into that again. He pushed, was like, well, this is what we want. We're going to get married. Pushed marriage, pushed where he wanted to get married, all of those things. And I was so unsure of myself because of past experiences. I kind of just let him lead me. And we got married at a beautiful castle. All my family from all over Europe and the States all came. And that night, after a beautiful day, he drew me a tub and I spilled water as I was trying to get in. Obviously, he had overfilled the tub because he filled it. He got mad at me for allowing water to spill on the beautiful marbled floor and started screaming and cursing at me. And I said, sweetheart, please don't ruin the day. And that was the wrong thing to say. For the next several hours, he chased me around the honeymoon suite in a castle. I mean, again, let me just say, it was the most beautiful place I've ever been in. Chased me around. I was naked because I was about to get into a tub. I was so afraid to run out. I was so afraid to get help. I was so embarrassed. And he finally chased me into our bedroom, threw me on the bed, started strangling me. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is the man that is going to kill me on our wedding day. Like, this man that I chose to marry is going to kill me. And luckily, he had that darkness in his eyes kind of go away as he saw me losing consciousness. And he got off of me, walked away. And I curled up in a ball and started crying. And I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do. But because I had been brought up, you know, once you get married, you stay married, I was in this thought process of, I married this man. I promised to be with this man forever. I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed. My family minister is the one who got us married, you know. And so all of these things were going through my head. So when he got off and started to apologize and give me all the reasons for his bad behavior, I wanted to believe that change was possible. I wanted to believe that this was a one-time thing and it would never happen again. Even though he had given me plenty of red flags before we got married, I was still choosing to ignore them because I was afraid I was getting older. I wasn't going to find anyone. I was afraid that there was something just completely wrong with me. My self-esteem was low. Even though I thought I had confidence, my self-esteem was still low. And just all the right things that he said to keep me in. So we for 5 years, and you know, the abuse kept going on. I would throw him out. I'd let him back in. You know, it's the dance of the toxic relationship, as I like to call it. And then at the end of that time, I was starting to say, you know what, I'm going to do what I need to do to make changes. And I had set up a possibility with a friend to stay there for a little while. And just about 2 weeks after I had set that up with my friend, he decided to quit his job. When I told him to get his job back, he cursed at me. And I said, you know what, I'm done. I've been trying everything to help this guy out, and I'm just completely done. And so I stayed with my friend for a few months. He stayed actually living in my house that I had bought way before him and I were together. And I decided to get a divorce. I went through the whole process. He gave me a hard time about it, but you know, luckily we were able to end it. Things got worse before they got better. I got a DWI. I had, like you said, my blood clot, my grandmother passing away, being put on probation. I mean, it was like the worst things that could happen. It just kept happening. And I kept thinking, but I got rid of this guy. Like, I don't understand why it keeps getting worse and worse. Like, is this just never going to get any better? And I kept thinking, this too shall pass. This too shall pass. It can't be like this forever. Like, something's got to change. And I sprained my ankle. And I got into the emergency room, and who was there but my ex-husband, because I had sprained it at work and I had not told the school where I was working as a teacher that we were divorced. So they called him in to come help. And I was there in the emergency room with my ex-husband, the last person I wanted to see, and the doctor who was there. And they said, yeah, you have a pretty bad sprain. And I just started laughing and crying at the same time and thinking, all right, I get it. And it was like this voice in my head that was telling me, you are your own knight in shining armor. Where the whole time I was looking for someone to come in and swoop me off my feet, even finding my ex-husband, I was looking for someone to come and save me. When the reality is that there was no one else that was going to save me. I had to do the right work for myself and make the changes and take responsibility for myself. So luckily I was able to do that. And now I'm married to my best friend, and we have 2 beautiful children, and we're actually moving to Texas and just, living a life that I would have never thought possible 10 years ago.
Wow. Amazing. What part of Texas are you going to?
We're moving to Houston.
Houston. A job transfer?
Yeah, well, my business has gotten to the point where I will no longer be teaching, and I will be working full time for the business and just helping transform women's lives. And what's really cool is that my husband, actually, him and I work together. So we get to spend the day together. We get to spend time with each other, and we both have that same goal of helping people transform their lives. So it's just such a great partnership to be able to have that.
Awesomeness. I love, I've known you for probably close to a year now, I think, or just under.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I've ever, from beginning to end, heard that part of your story. So that's definitely amazing, the transformation. And, for those of you out there who don't really totally understand codependency, there's two phases of it that I'm aware of. One is being the controlling, being controlled by others, and you're the doormat, you become the doormat. And the other end of codependency is when you yourself are the controller. And so there's two complete opposite dynamics of it. And so sometimes people think of just the doormat, but then there's quite a bit of codependency for those who are the actual controller. And I love the definition, Steph, of codependency is when we allow people, places, or things to become more important than ourselves, that we lose our identity. And it's understandable when it's people, but places can be our jobs, churches, schools, whatever it is. But if that place becomes your God, as you might say, or so much more important, and you lose your identity in it, it's not healthy. And things, I always say things can be drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, food, any kind of a thing. If that becomes more important than yourself, then you've lost your identity. So on that note, talk a little bit about the book that you wrote, and just the amazing accomplishments of how you've gotten to #1 on Amazon, I believe, correct?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. And I actually have come out with a second book, which is a workbook to go along with book 1. So if you go on Amazon, you can find both of those books available to you. But, it was interesting because writing a book about your story really helps you dive in even deeper. So not only was it helpful for myself, but for other people as well, because, it was just interesting. I just remember going through it and writing everything down, and there were parts where I forgot. I mean, I had to go through old police records and say, oh my gosh, what, I allowed that to happen? Like, that was me. Because when you go through that healing process, it becomes not you anymore. And it's not like a disconnection. It's just the person that allowed that to happen then would never allow that to happen now. My husband now, he says, I can't imagine, someone speaking to you that way and you being okay with it. I'm like, because now that would never work. I would never be okay with that. But I had gotten so used to it. They always give the example of the frog in boiling water, boiling itself to death. And that was literally what it was. And I think, you talked about that control versus the non-controller. I almost think a lot of us with codependency have a little bit of both. He was trying to control me, but I was kind of trying to control him, fix him and control the situation. Like, if I just act differently, if I behave differently, then everything's going to be okay. But that's not the case. And writing that book really gave me the opportunity to dig in, look at myself and look at my story and how it unfolded, and really see and allow other people to see that commonality. It's so often where it's almost like we are all reading the same book. I mean, the amount of people that come up to me and say, oh my gosh, your story resonated so much with me. Maybe the same exact things didn't happen, but it was, I grew up in an unhealthy family, and then my first relationship had this, and it kind of just builds off of the, previous lesson that didn't get learned. And you just keep going from there. And unless something major changes, you get to the point of these really, really terrible relationships. And we can see those things from children in high school. I've taught middle school kids about unhealthy relationships, and I've taught 80-year-olds about unhealthy relationships. And it's the same story. So writing that book was just great because it gives me, I have so many people that reach out to me and are just amazed that someone was able to put into words how they felt and what their journey was like, and to feel like they were not alone. And to, there's other people that are out there that have overcome it, because when you're in it, you feel like nobody understands and this is never going to get any better. So I wanted it to be easy to read, and I wanted it to be inspiring. So I also included 3 other stories from other people who had overcome the toxic relationships and were now in healthy ones. And then the other part of the book is really just, learning about red flags versus green flags, learning about what the warning signs are of codependency, what it is. But I mean, you can pick up that book and read it in just a few hours. And that was done on purpose. It's in complete layman's terms. There's nothing, it's just the story, making it easy to understand and a quick read so that you can get a lot out of it really quickly.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And for the audience to know too, definitely read Stephanie's book to get those tips and helpful things. And she does some amazing events too. But I want to also let the audience know that there is an organization out there that is free if you just get you started, called Codependence Anonymous, which the abbreviation is CODA. It's a 12-step recovery group. And when you go on to coda.org, it will list different Codependence Anonymous meetings throughout the whole entire world. And I had the privilege myself in 1992 when insurance companies used to approve that codependency was a disease and is a disease. They used to allow you to go to treatment, and I had the privilege myself to go into treatment for a whole month and work with professional therapists on codependency. And for those who are listening, it is a really deadly disease. It takes over your whole emotional being and all the joy in your life. And as Steph was just saying, one slogan in 12-step recovery is look for the similarities and not the differences, because many times we might feel like, well, I'm not as bad as Stephanie. My boyfriend or my husband hasn't beaten me. I'm not into domestic violence, and he's just a little controlling. And until you really read all of the not the definitions, but the characteristics of codependency, many times we're in such denial of how deep it is. Steph, when I first got into codependency, believe it or not, recovery myself, it was in the 80s with Sharon Wegscheider-Cruz, who kind of came into the realm of one of the first books on codependency. And I went to a conference in Nashville, Tennessee, and it had the who's who in recovery. Claudia Black was there with adult children of alcoholics. John Bradshaw was there. Patrick Carnes was there on sexual addiction healing. Judy Hollis was there on eating disorders. It was an amazing conference that I got to attend. And they had these tapes, the tapes are things you put in a tape player. If you young people that doesn't know what a tape is. And so they recorded the topics, and for the life of me, I can't find it. But one tape I got that was so profound was called, and the audience really take note of it, it was called Codependency in the Looking Good Family. And it was all about, it looks good, it feels good, we don't have drug addiction, we don't have alcoholism, we don't have violence. So our family is perfect. We have no problems. I grew up in a perfectly normal family, some people think. Well, when you really start breaking down codependency, many times you'll see that, and I'm not trying to make everybody in the world's life miserable by saying this, but many times we are in a codependent, dysfunctional family that looks good, feels good, but is, it causes a lot of doormat stuff and control and empowerment, being powered up, not empowerment, powered up on, that we're not even aware of. And then we take that from our childhood into our relationships and our marriages, thinking that we're in a healthy relationship, when sometimes we don't even realize how insane and dysfunctional it can be.
Yeah, and I want to add, I work mostly with women, and it's interesting because in my family growing up, my dad was the codependent one, but I work mostly with women, and I find that the women that I've worked with, it's more common. I feel like it's more common for women to be codependent. I think that society, and maybe it's hormones, maybe just the fact that we're women, we're nurturers more automatically, whatever it is. But it's almost more common for women to maybe be open about their codependency because we want to take care of people. I mean, my 19-month-old daughter has her baby that she, if you pretend the baby cries, she gets upset and goes over and holds it. She's 19 months old. That is not trained behavior. She figured that out on her own. That's automatic for her. So if you're being you're just naturally more prone to being a caretaker. Then you have that toxic relationship with your family where there's that unhealthy dynamic. And then you watch television, you listen to music, you see what's around you. That's the perfect storm to create that codependency in your life. And we don't even realize that it's there because it's subconscious. Think of the movies that you see, where the woman meets guy's terrible, woman does everything to try to make the guy like her, he finally falls in love, and then they live happily ever after. I mean, that's pretty much what the romantic comedies are, which I always get, infuriated at. But, even the songs that you listen to, think about any song that you've heard that's popular on the radio about not being treated well, and then, but sticking around for this guy or this girl to come back to them. And, so we really have to look at where that learning comes from. And it's not just one thing. It's just kind of layered one on top of the other. And it's about getting the right help. We have a lot of people that are coming from CODA that we work with as coaches. And, someone actually said yesterday, I went to a CODA meeting yesterday, and they said that CODA is one of the 4 legs of the table of healing. And I said, that's great. I love that. Because, in the beginning of me working with women, I wasn't sure. I didn't use that. So I wasn't as familiar with it. But now that I see, it's such a great asset for you, get that added support, really create that community to help you heal. Have the experts who know what they're doing help you peel back those layers, get really into your subconscious, get in all to those automatic sabotaging thoughts that you have, and help you really transform so that you can create the best version of you and stop attracting those unhealthy types of people into your life.
Well, and along with that, audience too, there is a terminology that would be really good to Google and learn about. It's called co-occurring addictions. And what a co-occurring addiction is, if any of you have ever struggled with disordered eating or compulsive spending over shopping or gambling or an addiction to sex or drugs or alcohol, any of those types of addictive behaviors. And at some point in your life, you recovered from that. You got well. Your life became more manageable. Generally, what happens is when you peel the onion and you begin the healing processes of that addiction disease that you had previously, what develops, if you haven't gotten full healing therapeutically and emotionally, is what's called a co-occurring addiction. It co-occurs with it and it comes into fruition. What I've learned over the years with my own healing is that codependency many times can be that underlining exiled real addiction that never gets addressed. And so if you've gone through any type of recovery for any things that controlled your life, I would highly recommend, because again, I utilize the definition people, places, or things. So if that thing you were addicted to, you were codependent of it. And so you may get off of that, but now you need to address the codependency so you do not relapse back into that original addiction.
And codependency is an addiction in and of itself.
Correct.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't realize that, so they get off of one, especially, and not that I'm picking on this, I happen to be a recovered alcoholic, but especially alcoholics, they get clean and sober, and they think that that's all they need, and they don't realize they too are codependent. And so if they do not deal with the codependency, they have a higher ratio of relapse than anyone. It's a big relapse. So just something to take in mind. So tell us a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, to transition. What does a dream coach do?
So Dream Coach is one of the first coaching certifications that I got because I knew that I wanted to help women, but I didn't really know how that was going to transpire. I created a business and I said, I don't know what my role is in this business. I just know I need to help. So I was actually at a business marketing meeting, training, whatever you want to call it. And this woman spoke, and she was kind of just hitting all of those things, the marks that I was thinking about doing. And I said, why wasn't I realizing that I'm a coach? This is what I am. I've been a teacher. At that point, I've been a teacher for like 12 years. I've been coaching. That's what I do. I've worked with 11-year-olds. I've worked with all these high school kids. And then I'd already been starting to work with women, with adult women. And I said, this is what I am. I'm a coach. So she had the possibility of getting trained from her. And I liked the fact, because it was new to me, is that she had a lot of resources out there to really help support the newer coach. So I got trained. I went through all of her training, and hers wasn't specially for people who are overcoming unhealthy relationships. A dream coach was just about helping support people to achieve their goals, achieve their dreams. And I loved that, because women in toxic relationships, they lose their dreams. It becomes somebody else's dream. So I wanted to help women just reconnect to their soul, to reconnect to their purpose, what they were put on this earth to do. And so those were all the things that were great. So with that training, it was a 3-month program. So, clients hire you for a 3-month period of time. It was one-on-one coaching. And, it takes you through a very specific process to help you reconnect to purpose and help you get really settled on that one goal. So by the end of that 3 months, you're expected to have been able to complete that one goal. Just work on one. And that was what she kind of had you do. And after I was doing that for a little while, I started to refine it. And I said, okay, there are things that I like about this specific coaching. I need some more. I need to add, because I need my clients to get the right support. So I took that. I got another coaching certificate, just a life coaching certification, to just add that to the repertoire. And, that kind of added some more things. And then, of course, working with women already at that point for, a long period of time, I was able to really know what had to be pinpointed. And, my background, I have a double master's degree in health and education. So when I went through my healing process, I really got to go back and dissect what worked for me. So all of the things I had learned from my coaches in becoming a coach, and all the things that I had learned on my process, I was able to kind of take that, mix it all up together, and come out with a program that works really well for our clients. I mean, we're seeing amazing results. I mean, people send us messages literally every single day saying, oh my gosh, I didn't know that it could be like this. I didn't know that life could be full of adventure. I didn't know that life could be so exciting. And, thank you. They're paying me to help them. And they're so thankful for the transformation that they're achieving. And it's really just because I know what it's like to be in that place of feeling like nobody understands. And I know what it's like to not have my voice or the self-esteem to stand up for myself. And I mean, I didn't understand what boundaries were. I learned what a boundary was when I was 34 years old. First time ever, a boundary, telling someone what you need and expecting them to go through with it. And if they don't, you've got your own consequence of what you're going to do about it. I mean, that was completely a foreign concept to me. And, I'm a lot of my clients, it's the same thing. I could enforce a boundary with someone. And there is that discomfort as you start sharing with people what your wants and needs are when you have never done it before. That can be uncomfortable, but it's such an important piece, because if not, then where does one person end and where does the other person begin? So we have to start getting comfortable with those boundaries. But yeah, all of that coaching and what I've used, with my clients it's just beautiful to watch the journey as people really connect to themselves and jump into their purpose. And the amount of people that are out there now saving the world as well. If you can just help one person and then that person helps one person, it's just this ripple effect. It's just, that butterfly effect. You just see everything changing and growing, and, it changes people's, even their families will notice a huge difference.
So with that transition, because you just talked about that, what are some of your goals and dreams for the remainder of 2020?
Well, I mean, it's been really exciting, because we decided not that long ago to leave New York. And I mean, that's been something in the works for a long time. As a teacher in New York, it didn't really make sense to leave my teaching position and go teach somewhere else, even though we've been looking to leave New York for a long time. And so, I'd created this business in 2014, but didn't, the group coaching that I now do became, much more popular in 2018. And so we were just working. We're seeing, how can we get it? My background wasn't marketing and business, so I had to kind of learn those steps of it. That was difficult for me, but now we've got that now in place. And so, all of those things kind of came together, and we said, hey, now's the time. That stuff we've been working for years. This is it. This is that moment. So, to be able to leave New York and go, we're buying a house 3 miles away from my best friend. So that's been a dream since, she moved away when we were in 8th grade. So ever since then, we were like, we're going to grow old together. We're going to have our kids together, all that. Well, none of those things were able to happen until now. So, we're really creating just this like more abundancy in our life, and to be able to be 3 miles away from my best friend. She's also a coach. Her husband does real estate. So all the learning and growing we're going to get from them, and then they're going to get from us, and the kids all hang. This is just really exciting stuff. So 2020 for us has been a year of growth and change that we are embracing. As much as the world seems crazy, that often happens before change occurs. So I'm embracing it and just riding
Awesome. I'm really excited for you. That sounds amazing. And how have you experienced connection during this social distancing time? What have you utilized for that?
Well, it's been great to actually reconnect. I actually spoke with someone 2 days ago that I haven't spoken to in a long time because he lives in Belgium. And, we've been friends since we were like 18 years old. And it was just great for him to reach out and say, hey, we need to chat. So we see the amount of people that I normally would never have even been able to talk to, or as a parent that has young children, we don't really get to go out as much. We don't get to go out to restaurants and things like that, even before COVID happened. So the fact that COVID happened almost made it so that people were more interested in reaching out. So we've been doing so many more Zoom calls, where we just kind of feel like, sometimes you might not feel like talking to someone, or you don't feel like doing video necessarily. What if my hair is not right? What if I, whatever. I just jump on, like, all right, someone's calling, they're reaching out to say hi, let's just jump on. So what, my hair is a mess, or, the kids are screaming or whatever, you just kind of put yourself out there and let people, reach out to you, and you do the same for them. And so it's been great to be able to keep those kinds of connections, and just even strengthen the connections that might have been starting to lose it over the years. They're actually stronger than they were before.
Awesome. And getaway experience, what type of a getaway experience do you hope to attain, if possible, in 2020 or going into 2021?
I am such a traveler, and we were actually in the summer, we were supposed to go to Japan to go visit my sister. It was going to be our getaway. So we're actually, dreaming up some great getaways. We're actually, we're going to be planning a Montana trip with a family, like with my sisters and their families in 2021. So we're already looking ahead and just assuming, like, let's just start making that our goal now, because we are a family of travelers. I don't like to sit still for very long. So these past few months, it's just been kind of like, just hold on tight and strap in. So yeah, some trips to Montana. We're going to be making some trips to probably Colorado and, getting out of the country. But yeah, there'll be lots of fun things planned.
Well, since the last time you and I spoke, I'm glad you shared that, because I have found the best Montana ranch for your family. It's 4-bedroom, 4-bath. Abby Moreland owns it. It's called Cottonwood Resort. It's about 40 minutes outside of Billings, with 21 horses and 3 arenas, and she does leadership events, and she's trained. You would absolutely love her. She's trained in Og Mandino's Habit Finder on discovering what your habits are in life. And just an amazing woman, and you would love it. And you can go and stay in the ranch home, and or she does allow people to bring RVs or tents to camp outside. So it would be amazing for your family, and
that sounds fun.
Definitely an event for us to do there. And then I just met just last week another amazing man and his daughter, who just built an adobe home in Lyons, Colorado, right outside of Boulder. 8 bedrooms, 5 baths, right next to a little river, and he's doing retreats there too. So I've got a Colorado home for you now and a Montana home for you. So
nice, awesome.
You know me, Stephanie. I love finding these unique getaways. So, so I found two new ones for you. So, if somebody told you today that you had to get rid of all your apps on your cell phone, but you could only keep 2, what's your 2 must-haves?
Well, because I run my business basically through Facebook, it would have to be Facebook. The other ones could probably all disappear. As long as I can call people, I don't know if that would be considered an app. Whatever way that I could video conference with people. and to have my Facebook. Those are, I mean, I can't think of anything else more important, at least for business wise.
Okay. And then fun. What's a fun fact about you? One fun fact.
You know, it's funny. I knew this was coming. So I think for me, what a fun fact is, a lot of people wouldn't realize, and I forget that it's kind of a weird thing for maybe other people, but my mom is from France. She grew up being bilingual. So, you know, when I was younger, my mom would speak French to me all the time. And when I started school, the teachers actually told my mom, they said, you know, we think she's a little slow. She's not using full sentences, you know, and the other kids are. And my mom's like, what are you talking about? She's been using full sentences. She was like 1.5 years. And it ended up that because the teachers didn't understand, I was speaking franglais, which was what my family called a combination of English and French. So here they were thinking that I was slow, and I was literally speaking 2 languages. I just didn't understand why they didn't understand. Like, why? I'm saying exactly what I need, but I was mixing up. I was just putting the 2 languages together.
You knew you were well versed in their thinking. She doesn't have a clue what the language is. That's really funny. That's really, well, it's kind of cute because my one granddaughter, she's like so unbelievably smart. She has a photogenic memory, and I had bought her a children's Bible story book. And so I remember one day I said to her, you know, Addie, you have to start memorizing some of the Bible stories. And she goes, Grandma, I've memorized them all. And so and I'm like, sure, she's 7 years old, right? Yeah, you memorized she goes, I memorized them all already. So one day my son was reading to her, and this was about 8 months ago, so pre first grade. And he's reading her Samson. And she's on the bed and he's reading it. And so she started saying the story faster than him. And he's like, what are you doing? So she stood up and he recorded it. And it was like about an 8-page story. And she knew every single word. And she hadn't read it because she wasn't actually reading books yet.
Yeah.
But she could literally hear the story and remember every single word. And at 3 years old, she memorized every single president of the United States. Everyone.
Wow.
Like all of them.
That's impressive.
Yeah. And it's like, how in the world does your brain do that?
Yeah. Seriously.
So what I'd like to do now is just show the audience Stephanie's bio and how you could reach out to her. It has her website. And again, this will be posted on the YouTube channel so that you'll be able to locate her should you want to reach out to her for an appointment or just get in contact with her. And so it's just been lovely to have you on our show. And before we end, I'd love the audience to know that the Connection Show does look for other leaders like Stephanie who would love to share their story on the Connection Show. And to reach out to me to schedule that appointment, please go to braveheartworkshops.com, fill out the contact form, and I'll reach out to you for a time that works for both of us. For you in the audience, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. And what we've decided to do is we've just added in the last couple of weeks the Connection Show Gathering Tribe private Facebook page. If you go to that page, which I'll post again for you to find it, and you join the group with your email, we will send you a Zoom connection so that on Mondays you can join us at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 Central, 6 o'clock Mountain, or 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's an opportunity for you to connect with some of the leaders who have come on the show. Last Monday, we had 4 of our former guest speakers that were on the show. We got a little heavy talking about how the circumstances in the world are affecting us, so it was a little bit of a heavier conversation. But the week before, we decided to do improv comedy. We do game shows, we share story, and we just learn how to connect in life with each other. So please join us. And Stephanie, I know your life is a little bit in turmoil right now with the move, but once you've settled into Texas, we'd love for you to join in occasionally on Monday nights so that the audience can get to know you better and you can connect as well. So thank you very much, Stephanie, for joining us, and have a safe move to Texas.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and stay well.
Okay. Have a lovely day.
Let's connect now. We can dream together to renew, restore, and reconnect with wellness in our life. Go to Braveheart Workshop braveheartworkshops.com. Join me for weekly Zoom connections on Facebook at facebook.com/Braveheart Workshops. Thanks so much for joining the show, and we look forward to seeing you on Monday night.